Adegboyega Abdul Maruf Ogunwale. For those who understand what Abdul Maruf means, some clerics or someone told me that it means someone who has a passion for God. Ostensibly, those who named me did not know which God. But anyway, I grew up in a family that had no space for God. My mother was accomplished. My father was accomplished, and he was a philosopher in a way. He told us when we were growing that there was no need to believe in God in the main, because God had given you everything you needed to succeed, and that in actual fact God believes in you. So there was actually a contradiction in that. God was almighty, but in a way I had been given everything that I needed. So in my early days there was no need for God, unfortunately. I was a slow child, and one of my uncles actually thought I had autistic disorder. My mother felt, on the other hand, that I was simply an imbecile. But by the time I had spent a few years, the Lord turned my story around. That will be your testimony. I became a brilliant student. I don't know what happened. But obviously there was a hand that was upon my life. I did not see it. So when I got to 5th year in primary school, I was in primary 5, my father saw that I was a superlative student. And he said, if you did not go to a federal government college, you were not going to school. But there was a hand upon my life. And that hand made it impossible for me to score the cutoff mark for a federal government college. I tried at this college. I was a masterpiece, but I did not pass. Eventually, I found myself in a school called Olivet Baptist High School, Oyo. And within my first term in Oyo, something happened to me. On an evening that was a routine day, a young boy in GSS 3, he called me to the lower bunk of a double-decker bunk, and he told me that I was a sinner. I was aware, but there was a confusion as to how that was important to two young people. He said, however, I would go to hell if I did not take a decision. And since it was not a good arrangement to go to hell, I felt it was better to take the next door. And he said I needed to give my life to Christ. On that day, I gave my life to Jesus. If I had known what I was doing, it would have been better. All I knew was that the axe of Damocles, called hell, had been removed from me. But as I grew in grace, I found that that was the defining moment of my life, and the point at which I began to understand and fulfill destiny. My academics took another turn, and I became not just a masterpiece, but as you would say of the Americans, I was e pluribus unum. Among many, I was one. I was not primus inter pares. Ladies and gentlemen, when I left Olivet, I entered into University of Ilorin to study medicine and surgery, because the Lord had made me a distinguished individual. By the time I was in 100 level, I had the Chevron scholarship, the Shell scholarship, and I was a Christian. I was an SU, if you like, and yet I was succeeding all the way. Jesus had his hand upon me. And in my academics, up till now, I can tell you that God has been good. I came to Abeokuta for a residency in psychiatry, and within 4 years and 4 months, I was already a fellow of the West African College of Physicians. Within a space of a few years of qualifying, the number of my publications are getting closer to 20 every day. And when I look at married life, I can only tell you that there is nothing like the God that we serve. when I was confused as to how to pick a wife, and I got to a point of saying I will look for one myself, the Lord eventually dabarued my plan. And one day, a beautiful lady came to our house, and the rest is history. After 3 children. Let me conclude with the miraculous. The God that I serve is a living God. The only son that we have, when he was born, I saw that after 2 days, his tummy was swelling. I knew there was a problem. But in psychiatry, we talk about denial. I pretended as if there was none. But on the day of the naming, he vomited and he aspirated his vomiters. In short, we slept in the hospital. 24 hours later, my son was diagnosed with Hirschsprung's disease. For those who know, for doctors, for now I'm not a doctor, I'm the father of the boy. The doctor said he had Hirschsprung's. I told the Lord, give me another word. And the Lord said, by him all things were made. I told the Lord, that is not relevant. Give me a word for healing. He said, pause, my boy. If this one was made by God, then he can remake him. And before I knew it, the boy that would have been scheduled for surgery, he did not need any surgery. Miraculously, the hand of God came upon him, and the boy became healed. He will be 5 in December, and the name of God has been glorified. Let me conclude my testimony. Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 1:18 that the preaching of the cross perishing is foolishness, but unto me it is the power of God unto salvation.